Hi, I'm Billy Goodnick, local landscape architect and your host of Garden Wise, the place where all the cool kids come to learn more about sustainable landscaping. We've had a continuing series going on where I introduce you to designers and landscapers and show you a little bit more about their design process so you can use it at home. Today we join Ashley Farrell of Ashley Farrell Landscape Design, and she's going to walk us through a beautiful front yard garden that they reclaimed to create some wonderful, useful outdoor space for the family. Take it away, Ashley. Hi, welcome to our segment where I talk to a landscape designer, and this one's a little bit different, not pure design. So the purpose of this is to help people understand why it might be to your advantage to hire a professional and bring them in on your project. Nothing wrong with do-it-yourselfers, but there's kind of a limit to that. So I'm here with Ashley Farrell, Landscape Design. And tell me a little bit about what makes you different from a straight-up landscape designer or landscape contractor.
Sure, yeah. So thanks for having me. It's always
You're
a pleasure speaking with you. We are a design build firm. We do a lot of different types of landscapes. We do hand drawings. We also always work with architects in the city and the county and do designs from other firms as well as our own. In this case, we actually came out and sprayed pink spray paint and laid out the patio spaces, the walkways, and you know the hardscape. And then it kind of just transforms and grows organically and turns into a garden over the several weeks that we're here on site.
So when I asked you the other day, would you please bring a drawing, you would have just shown me a...
Oftentimes I would have a drawing to present to you, but in this case we didn't have one. We really did it just laying out the space and talking with the homeowner and deciding, is this patio look sufficient? Is this big enough? You know, trying to figure out what you're going to use the patio space for is always important. Are you going to have an L-shaped conversational seating area with a coffee table and a couple comfortable chairs? Are you going to do a fire pit with Rondock chairs around? So you kind of need to figure out how you're going to utilize the space so then you can create the patio to fit those items.
So tell me specifically on this project, how did you connect and what was the lead up before the truck showed up and people started digging holes?
Right. So I believe John gave us a call. We set up a consultation. We come out and walk the property and look at the space, talk about their wants and needs.
And in this case?
And in this case, they had a dead grass, zero landscaping ever since they've lived in this home. They have a lovely home. They've done all of the renovations on the home itself, but the garden, usually people push out from the inside out.
Sure.
So we came out and met with John and his family, and we walked the space and talked about their wants and needs and decided how they wanted to use the space. And then we created, hardscape around that.
So what was it they wanted to be able to do? I always start an interview with, what do you want to be able to do, underline, bold print, and have people think about activities and the life of the space. The analogy I use is on your first meeting with an architect, you don't bring fabric swatches for the throw pillows.
Right.
That's the plants, I like pink, I like
fluff.
orange. So how do you get to the functionality of the space? What was it that they were hoping to?
So they were open to ideas. They have a very large family. They have lots of children and grandchildren. They have their daughter lives just down the street, so there's a lot of kids running around. And in this area of more mesa, they're able, kind of like the mesa, to kind of utilize the front yard as well as the backyard.
Because it's quiet enough, you don't have to just fight
Exactly.
traffic.
So we were able to utilize the front yard and create some usable space in the front as well as the back. That's another little outdoor room, if you will.
Place to chill.
Yes.
It's like the den. This is the dining room.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Room analogy.
Yes.
Cool. So you came out, you met with John and family, and they like you. So how do you get from, yeah, Ashley, let's do this, to what we have here, which is a beautiful, really diverse garden and wonderful spaces too?
So we come out and meet with the client, we walk the space, we talk about their needs, and then we usually send them down to Santa Barbara Stone or another hardscape company to look at the showrooms and look at the type of hardscape that they would like. Your options are flagstone. There's many types of pavers available. They've gotten a lot better. This is the Estate Cobble 2, which John had tumbled, so it's got an extra process added to it.
They look more organic.
Yeah.
Like they've been around for a while.
Yeah.
You're right, you get those hard square edges.
Exactly. And so then we just talk about, I come out with my assistant and we measure spaces. Sometimes we work on a plan from an architect such as yourself. Sometimes I just get my pink spray can out and I spray out, what I see would work.
Now, what would happen if it were orange?
I buy orange when they're out of pink, but the landscape, the irrigation stores buy the pink especially for me. So I usually have the hot pink. Yeah. So I will spray out the areas and talk about, the use of space. And then from there, we go back to the office and we take our measurements and we talk about plant choices, the plant palette.
So how does that work? I mean, you can't bring somebody a leaf sample of every plant you want to use. And I remember the days when I carried around 12 books with Post-it notes in it and flipping. Yeah,
I remember that.
So what's your process for getting to plant palette?
Well, I always ask people what their color palette is, what colors they prefer. Some people love reds and oranges and yellows, and some people love purples and grays and whites. I tend to like a little pops of color. I like to really intermingle pinks and oranges, strangely enough, and then the grays and the whites and the Kelly greens always add, those are your base colors. So I often ask the clients if they'd like to, if in their travels in the next few weeks, if they see anything that they're partial to, take a quick photo and send it to us.
But pull over to the curb first.
Exactly.
Hang your camera out the window.
And then also I offer a service where I will take my clients on a field trip to the nursery.
That's great.
And then we can see what they're partial to and as well as what's available. And then we just kind of go from there. You want to have your base plants, your things that are always going to be full. I call them, your filler plants. Mm-hmm. And then you have your flowering plants. And I always like to incorporate grasses because I feel it adds some movement to the garden.
Especially a breezy site like this near the beach. Yeah, you get kinetic sculpture.
As well as shade trees.
Yeah.
Always important to me. I'm in the sun all the time. I really feel that people utilize the garden more when they're able to find bits of shade.
Perfect. Create different environments, different climates. This is great. Let's take a little stroll around the garden maybe and talk about a few of your favorite plants in here and
would love to.
What they're going to do.
Okay.
Let's go this way.
All right.
We're in the garden amidst plants. I'm going to take a first shot here. What I see that I really like that you've done is toward the background, you've got the most substantial kind of muscular plants, and then as we come forward, it's a lighter touch and there's a lot of diversity. So give me a little on how a section like this might evolve, not just on this project, but how you go about saying, I'm going to put a tree here, I'm going to put shrubs here, I'm going to put ground covers, grasses.
Yeah, so when you create a large bed, you give yourself the opportunity to have layers of landscaping.
Thank you, thank you. I see people trying to create lotus land in a 18-inch bed along the edge of their fence.
And a lot of our houses in Santa Barbara have these little dated pathways that are right next to the house. If you eliminate those, you can create a large bed in the front. You have your foundational plants, you have a little bit of movement from grasses that are evergreen, and then you have opportunity for ground covers in the front. I always like to incorporate things that attract the bees. I'm a beekeeper as well, and I always want to incorporate things that help the native pollinators as well.
That's great. So one of the things you have here was it was a big yard, and it was all dead grass, and people have this reaction of just recreating something lawn-like, but using a ground cover. But what you've done here is stacked these layers and really taken advantage of the depth. Now you've got the opportunity for plants to grow to their full size without having to be pruned all the time or boxed.
And it's nice to do swaths of things, so you kind of can see the plants in all their glory when you do them in a large arrangement, large groupings together.
So let's go over these guys. You've got Catmint or Nepeta,
which is just about done flowering. When I was here last week, the Erigeron was in full bloom, and now it's done. And the Catmint is just about done, and the irises are just coming into flower.
So when this is all done, not just removing the flowers, but sometimes you just kind of bundle up the whole plant and take it back down?
Into a ponytail and just cut it all the way back, and then you'll get a second flush in the summer.
Perfect. And this is one of my favorites. We're calling it a grass, but botanically it's not. This is?
Lomondra Breeze.
Breeze, yeah, and it's this wonderful kind of yellow-green color. Then we're coming back to these iris, and this is a plant back here that a lot of people may not be familiar with, the one with the variegated leaves. And that's Pisonia, which is great in sun or shade and has this great variegation. And then there's this really cool one back there, kind of ferny. Let's step back. So, Ashley, hello over there. I'm loving this 3-plant combination here. We've got the sage, we've got honeybush, Melianthus, and Westringia. This is Winyabi gem. Tell me what's going on here, because there's a lot of complexity, but it still really feels like it holds together.
Well, this is a really large property. They have a double lot here, and the house is very long, and so I wanted to have some big, bold textures. So you have a little bit of play on texture. You have the striking boldness of this with a little bit of whimsy in the front, and then of course the salvias, which the bees love as well, to add some flowers. I have these, I use these often, and they bloom prolifically, and they grow in sun or shade, and I use them often.
Let's talk a little about water, irrigation. How is this watered? And once it's settled in and mature, what do you think the irrigation schedule would be like?
So we really do thrive to put in plants that are tremendously drought tolerant, and in coastal Santa Barbara, once the plants get established, they can be you know, pretty self-sufficient. When we plant, everything is on a drip system, and when we install the plants, we put them on 3 times a week for 15 minutes. We usually either a 1 or 2 gallon emitter, so you're getting maybe a 1/4 gallon to a 1/2 gallon 3 times a week. And then after that, we'll turn it down to maybe once a week.
So just a couple of months to get them established.
Although the weather's getting warmer, and you know, the last few months, you know, the watering has had to step up, because trying to install plants in the heat is a little bit tricky.
Right, but this garden's only been in since last fall.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
So amazing amount of growth, and that's what the water does. But the other thing is that by watering that way, you establish a nice deep root system.
Exactly.
That makes them more
And
self-sufficient.
I often ask my clients to get out on a Saturday and give everything a deep water and wash down the mulch, which really, we use a recycled mulch from Progressive that is brought in by the tree companies and landscape companies. So it's got big and small bits. So when you water it a few times, I always put a big thick layer of it on. When you water it a few times, it really creates a solid mat, which chokes out the weeds, you know, ensures that the moisture is kept, you know, and stabilizes the temperature fluctuations.
Right, it's insulation.
Yeah.
This is great, loving this garden. We're here at the main front yard outdoor living area, and there's a whole bunch going on in the back for family activities, hot tub and dining areas and things like that. But this is the ideal spot for breakfast and lunch, the little wall there for sitting or playing or whatever with the grandkids. But what's going on here, I'm seeing, is maybe a drainage swale. Is this what's going on?
Yeah, so I always like to, anytime we create a patio or any kind of hardscape, we always have to excavate down, and with that extra soil, I like to use it to contour and make elevations, rolling elevations in the landscape. It adds another architectural interest to, you know, postage stamp property.
Right. Well, also another advantage, a lot of our Mediterranean plants want really good drainage, and if you get them up, then the crown of the plant there gets to
and in
shed some
doing
water.
so, you can create, you know, little high swales and highs and lows where you can actually retain water in the event that we have a precipitation, you know, in the area. We can collect that water, and it can seep into your groundwater. Nowadays, we try and think of every property as a watershed, and you can measure the roof line and figure out how much water you would get on an annual basis, and you can kind of try and direct that water and keep it on your property instead of flushing it all out to the street.
Right, the detention basin idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And then dry creeks are also a nice way aesthetically to make something beautiful, but in certain times of the year, they will actually flow with water. So we created this one for the drainage. All the hardscape flows this way, and the water can, you know, shed off and into the street.
Yeah, and in other areas, you've got those low spots where it gets to sink down.
Correct.
That's great. So, and I'm seeing another big old Tipawana tree here, so that's going to be aiding with the shade in this space, and another beautiful planting. Love what you've done here. Thank you so much for spending time with us, and I hope you'll consider the idea of bringing a professional, whether it's design build or a landscape architect or a landscape designer, into your project and make the most out of what you've got. Thanks. Thank you, Ashley. It was great learning about that project. And if you want to learn more about Ashley and her work, go to ashleyfarrelldesign.com. Visit her portfolio or just get in touch. Next up, we're going to join Mike Tully from Terra Garden Center. He'll be introducing us to one of his favorite plants, one of mine too. It's called Leucospermum, also known as Pincushion, and it looks like it's from out of this world.
So I've been asked to speak about one of my favorite plants, and since we are in the middle of Santa Barbara winter, I'm going to be talking about pincushions, or Leucospermum. These are shrubs from South Africa. They generally grow in very similar climate to Southern California, so they're ideal for our growing conditions here. Pretty spectacular plants. They typically start blooming somewhere in winter and then bloom their way into spring, sometimes all the way into summer. Really spectacular flowers, as you can see, very long lasting on the plant. You can see where they get the name pincushion because they have these really neat structures to them. Hummingbirds will be attracted to them. They're very drought tolerant, love full hot sun, do well in poor soil, don't need a lot of attention. They're great as cut flowers for your arrangements in your home. These are fantastic plants. They bring wonderful color to a winter garden. When a lot of stuff is sleeping and ready to perk up for the later spring or summer, these guys are an amazing show in your winter garden.
Thank you, Mike, for introducing us to the pincushion plant. We'll be right back.
When the weather changes, do you know how much water your plants need? For landscaping text alerts, subscribe to the county-wide free message service. You'll receive weekly texts with a water percent adjust recommendation to help you conserve water and save money by reducing your watering during cooler weeks. You'll also be notified about upcoming WaterWise classes. A typical seasonal or monthly adjustment isn't precise enough, so you may be overwatering and wasting money. A weekly adjustment is better for the health of your landscape, and it's so simple. Just look for the seasonal adjust, water budget, or percent feature on your irrigation controller. And finally reduce the percentage based on the recommendation for that week. To sign up for weekly landscape alerts, text WaterWise to 855-510-0241.
It's 4 a.m. Do you know what your sprinklers are doing? Broken drip emitter. Gurgling spray head. Missing drip emitter. Dog. Micro sprayer overspray. Broken pipe. Runoff. Check your sprinklers for leaks and repair. Let's save together.
Be the solution to water pollution and stop pollution at its source. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach.
From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. De la gente a la calle, al arroyo, a la playa. De la gente a la calle, al arroyo, a la playa. De la gente a la calle, al arroyo, a la playa. De la gente a la calle, al arroyo, a la playa.
From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. From the people to the street, to the creeks, to the beach. We're all the solution to water pollution.
Hey, welcome back and thanks for staying tuned in. You know, the key to any successful garden is a healthy, rich, vibrant, living soil. But when you drive into the nursery, there's just a whole lot of bags out there. How do you know what to do? Well, we're going to go back to Terra Nursery and learn how to enrich your knowledge and enrich your soil.
Take a look at these beautiful gardens, all unique but with one thing in common: good soil. Unfortunately, few gardens start off with good soil to nurture healthy plants, which is why enhancing your soil with a soil amendment is crucial to the growth and survival of your garden.
So a soil amendment, you are looking to improve an existing planting situation. You already have an existing garden bed or open ground in your garden where you're going to be planting landscape plants. So an amendment is something that is going to be incorporated into your existing soil. It's never used alone. So amendment is always there to improve and incorporate into existing soil. You'll find varying types of amendment that might be working with different pH in the soil and also improving texture, aeration, porosity, nutrient availability. Typically, region to region, we are in Santa Barbara County, most people's soil needs for amending their garden are going to be similar. You may get to different regions of the state or the country where you may need to amend differently related to your existing soil conditions. So in Santa Barbara, we're generally looking at improving drainage, possibly lowering pH a little bit because our pH is slightly high. And by improving your aeration and water penetration into your soil, you are going to increase nutrient availability and stronger root growth.
The right soil amendment will improve your soil texture and pH, add nutrients, and create a thriving base to a healthy garden.
Santa Barbara, again, is typically dealing with more heavier clay type soil, but some people do have sandy soil also, and other parts of the state or country may have that too. Regardless, the same type of soil amendment is going to improve a clay soil and a sandy soil. Clay soil, that coarse organic matter in your planting mix or soil amendment, is going to open up pore space and create better aeration and water penetration. In a sandy soil, you have no problem with water penetration and aeration. You have a problem with moisture retention and nutrient value. Those are both lacking in a sandy soil. So when you're adding the same type of amendment to a sandy or a clay type soil, you're going to improve both of them. There may be reasons why you choose one type of amendment versus another. That is typically related to pH also. So you may be looking at planting acid-loving plants, azaleas, camellias, ferns, things like that, where you may be using an amendment that actually has an acidifying property to it. The flip side, not so much common in California, but sometimes you may be needing to adjust your pH up and using a lime type product to adjust your pH up. So that would be reasons you would choose one amendment versus the other, is usually related to pH issues.
Soil amendments can either come with organic properties or inorganic properties, and knowing the difference between the two can affect the overall health of your soil.
So when you're looking at soil amendments, you may find some that are labeled organic and some that do not have the organic label on there. Beware that the organic label can be under some acronyms. OMRI, O-M-R-I, is our national stamp for organic product. But you may see some stamps also from California. So anyway, when we're looking at organic versus inorganic, the main difference there is you have the similar physical properties of the amendment in the bag. It's literally what nutrient is added to those amendments. So not only do you have your physical properties that you achieve from using amendment, but you also get a nutrient value. The nutrient can be added as an organic source, which might be chicken manure, bat guano, blood meal. Your nutrient source might be provided with an inorganic source, such as a nitrate nitrogen. So you're not looking at necessarily a difference in the end result of the product, but you're looking at what you're putting in your soil and the nutrient. And that nutrient, again, will be either organically sourced or inorganically sourced. In general, I think the majority of the gardening community prefers organic. There's a very physical reason for that. If you look at a healthy soil system in a garden or out in nature where you see beautiful plants growing on their own with no help of human hand, these soils are teeming with microbial activity, little tiny organisms that are interacting with roots, with the plant, with nutrient, and this is very integral to a healthy soil and healthy plants. When you're applying organic fertilizer, organic nutrient source, i.e. fertilizers, to soils, you are benefiting the existing microbial activity, these living organisms that should be present in your soil. Inorganic nutrients do not encourage growth. They may actually damage the growth or thriving populations of these beneficial microbes that are in your soil. So basically organic, you're feeding your soil, which is making a healthier soil for your root system. Inorganic, you look at it as you're feeding your plants, but you're not helping your soil.
After selecting a beneficial soil amendment for your garden needs, make sure the amendment is thoroughly mixed into the soil. Simply burying it will reduce its effectiveness.
Thank you, Mike and Terra for demystifying what's in all those different bags. You know, it goes along with an old gardening adage, take a $1 plant, put it in a $10 hole. What does that mean? It means pay attention to what's going in the dirt, make it alive. Here's a little secret that I use and a lot of other designers use to take what's normally a low maintenance, sustainable garden, keeping it that way, but having a little place for some seasonal fun and keeping the garden looking alive. I call it the year-round playground. Wouldn't it be fun to have a garden that looks great all year round, but still leaves you a little bit of room to have fun and freshen things up? That's the concept behind creating a year-round plant playground. That's what I like to call it. Sometimes I have a client who they love working in the garden, but they don't want to tackle everything. That becomes a chore. So just a little place to have a pop of color, a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of seasonal change, and it's also a great excuse to go to the nursery, open up your wallet, and bring home a few new plants. So the idea is to have a few strategic locations around the house where you're going to get the most pleasure out of them. It might be approaching your front door, or off the side patio where you like to dine and you want to just see something special and nice, or maybe even the view from your kitchen window while you're doing your chores, washing dishes, that sort of thing. Look out and see a garden that just really welcomes you. So that's the idea behind this little playground. A garden that's stable for most of it, maybe 80–90% of the garden is done and just needs routine care. And then there's this place where you can just bring new stuff and keep it popping all year long. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's a perfect example at La Sumida Nursery as you come in the driveway on the right-hand side. They've got an established garden with long-term permanent plants. They've got a very nice rock. If you want one of these, just pull over at the side of the road, get a couple friends to help. We've got rosebush, we've got New Zealand flax, we've got yarrow, we've got these ivy geranium, and these are all permanent plants that give a little something throughout the year. Then they've reserved this small area. This is the playground. This is where seasonally there's always new stuff coming in here. So right now I'm shooting in November. We've got snapdragons for winter. We've got Iceland poppies. Later on in the year, all of this is going to get taken out, fresh plants put in. The magic of this is you don't have to redo the entire garden. You just have your little playground where you get to put some new stuff when the impulse strikes. The easiest thing to do is to show up at the nursery and just go, ooh, shiny, and whatever catches your eye, you throw it in the car, pay for it first, and then you take it home. We need a little bit of planning, a little bit of organizing to do it. First thing is, Pick your location before you go to the nursery. Where are you trying to pull off this little playground? And it may be multiple areas. And then look at what the growing conditions are there. If it's on the east side of your house, for example, it's going to get morning sun and some shade in the afternoon. If it's in an entryway that's partly shaded all day, that's going to help you make a decision on which plants to bring home. What kind of soil do you have? All those things that go into planning any sustainable garden, especially when we're working in the dirt, those all come into play. How much water you're going to use, etc. So first thing is location and doing a quick site analysis to see what conditions you have to work with. The next thing is how much space do you want to allocate to this? If your ambition is just to come home with a couple of pony packs, maybe 6 or 12 plants, you don't need an awful lot of space for that. If you want to make a little bigger splash, then you're going to take more space. So that's step 2. Step 3 is to see what's already there, what are the permanent plants, and how are you going to respond to those. You could just kind of ignore what's around, but I don't think that makes good design sense. So for example, let's say you've got something like this Euryopsis. This is a bush daisy, and we want to respond to this or complement it. It's just like interior design. If you've got a couch that's a certain color, the throw pillows are going to make some sense with it. So let's pretend the plants are throw pillows. So I've got this Euryopsis daisy. What is it saying to me? Bright yellow flowers, it's got ferny-like leaves, and now I want to put some seasonal stuff near it that says, hey, it's fall or it's winter. Fall is when we go with chrysanthemums. So what are we doing here? We're going with a similar shaped flower. Everything radiates out from the center. We're playing yellows and warm colors against yellows. Maybe we throw in some orange with it, and these are the plants that are going to surround your daisy bush and make sense of all of this, so it all becomes one composition. Fall is over, it's getting toward winter, moving into spring. You like that color scheme? Calendula does the same thing. Again, a daisy-shaped flower, but these are what I call James Dean flowers. They live fast, they die young. Another thing about a lot of these annuals, if you pick off the flowers after they've reached their peak, you'll get more flowers. If you let them go to seed, they decline sooner. So here's the same color scheme again. Summertime rolls around. I just happened to get lucky here at La Sumida. There probably shouldn't be a lot of marigolds left, but here we are with the same color scheme. And if you know marigolds, they come in golden colors and orange and rusty sort of colors. So I call this an anchor plant. If there isn't already an existing mature landscape there, you can purchase some permanent plants to put in and respond to those. I've got a few more here. But let's say this luscious, beautiful sage is already in your garden. Same idea. What's the shape of the plant? What are the color of the flowers? What goes with it? We could go back to our original plant palette, in which case we get a lot of contrast. Playing yellow against purple is really strong and bold. Bring the orange in, and again, this just comes to life. Hello? If you want to stay more subtle, you can blend the same colors. This is what you would call a monochromatic color scheme, all based on the same color. You want to add a little in-between sparkle. Johnny Jump Ups, they pick up the purple. You get some yellow out of that as well. All sorts of combinations. I'm just giving you some limited examples here. But what I want to emphasize is that these plants that we're playing with, the annuals and perennials that we're just putting in and taking out, can be a statement unto themselves, or they can be an integral part of the garden. I want to show you a few other anchor plants. Now that sage is for sun. If you like that same color scheme, a plant like Heliotrope might give you that same sort of combination, but this is a plant that takes a little bit more moisture, but if it's in a shaded area, I don't really worry about that. And a couple more. Stay right where you are. Don't go anywhere. Don't go in the kitchen and get some pretzels while I'm doing this. They don't all have to be big shrubby plants. They can be some of these drama plants like Anigozanthos. This is Kangaroo Paw. I was just showing off multi-syllable. Kangaroo Paw, you're working with coppery sort of colors, or you may not have big substantial plants, but you might have permanent ground covers. The whole point is respond to what's there, create a sophisticated sort of look. Okay, not everybody has dirt in the ground that they can garden around. A little townhouse, balcony at your apartment, or a front porch sort of thing. All of these ideas about seasonal color and having a little place to play are scalable. You might have a couple of big pots with like a palm tree or some ferny type thing on your porch, but you just want to have something that says it's fall or it's spring or it's winter or whatever. So we work with pots. They can be this size, because this is all I could pick up today. Wasn't going to bring any big ones for you, but we can have just as much fun with these. This plant is called Kalanchoe. And probably right now on your screen there's a little thing there, because I'll spell it for them. We have Kalanchoe, and this is a plant that flowers and flowers. It's a succulent, and you can find them at La Sumida, of course, and all sorts of places. And we can play with the color and make sure, again, we complement the container that we're going in. So we can go kind of with a monochromatic scheme, put the yellow in the yellow and the orangey colored one in here, or crossbreed them this way. If you want to amp it up a little bit, there's kind of a rule of thumb, especially with big flower pots. You want to have a thriller, you want to have a filler, and you want to have a spiller, something that comes out. So if you have the space to do it, you could use, what do we have here? Oh, I like this. I didn't like that. I'm gonna have to buy that one. We can use these orange colored pansies with this in a yellow colored pot, or switch it up. These will spill. This will come up and give you kind of a cloud-like shape. Fixing my plant here. What else? You know, this doesn't just have to be flowers and pretty things. We can work with edibles. There's some stunning plants that you can harvest and eat. How do you go wrong with lettuce? It comes in so many different foliage colors, and there's different forms. There's crinkly ones, but boy, you can really create something interesting using something edible. Just make sure you've got the right amount of sun and shade, and that you're watering them properly, and you have a good soil mix. Certainly organic fertilizers are the way to go. Seasonally, this time of year they start showing up. We're in the winter months right now. These are forms of ornamental kale, and there's cabbages that have these great sort of foliage colors. You can mix and match. Oh, I like this. Here's a nice combo. A little bright and cheery variegation from the kale, and the dark sort of wine color from your lettuce. And if you want to mix it up even more, a few more permanent herbs. This is culinary sage. Put it in your roasts or whatever else you're doing that you like in the kitchen, and this will work well. Again, monochromatic color scheme. You just have to know how big these plants want to get and make sure they have enough space. That's the rule in any garden. So a few ideas, ways to create little playgrounds, little places to refresh and change your plantings out while having a stable, water-conserving garden. Thank you, La Sumida, for letting me play in your playground. Well, that's it for this episode of Garden Wise. Thank you for tuning in, and I really hope you've learned something that you can take home and use in your own garden. And if you want to catch up on past episodes, even the really silly ones I did with Owen Dell years ago, go to waterwisesb.org. Thanks for tuning in, and stay water wise, Santa Barbara County.